Okay, so welcome to the Technical Steering Committee meeting for March 5th, 2025. We'll follow our standard approach of going through the issue that was tagged in the TSC repo or generating the TCP repo with 1693. Before we get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? Okay, so no announcements this week. Just our regular reminder to nominate people for the Collaborator Contributor Spotlight. In terms of the CPC and board meeting updates, I don't think we have either our CPC or board reps, so I'm just going to put in no update this week. Then we will move on to issues. So deadlock at process shutdown. I will see if anybody has an update on that. Please jump in. Otherwise, I'm taking a look at the issue. Okay, I don't see an update. I seem to remember there was some discussion in the past of the next step, but does anybody have any remembrance of? Because I think there was a proposal. I just haven't heard if that moved forward. It was, okay, if nobody else has the context at this point, I don't see anything in the issue, so I guess we'll just say no update this week. Sorry, I'm going to promote Antoine. Okay, so we'll move on to the next issue. So the next one is talk about how node.js is funded, fund maintainers. Just going to open that up to see if there's any new discussion there. So that one, I think we have enabled GitHub sponsors and GitHub and Open Collective. And we did document in this. I'm just going to document to where it is. Node.js funding sources. We've documented that in here. We on Open Collective GitHub sponsors and documented. So that one, we have made that progress. The question would be, does it actually address the suggestions in that particular issue? I'm just going to add it to those things, Open Collective and GitHub sponsors and documented. We'll use them in. I guess the question is like if people have read that one, it says fund maintainers, and I'm not sure that like our current approach is intended to fund maintainers specifically. It's to use the funding to basically address specific needs of the project versus like general maintainers for development items and stuff like that. So I don't know if we can say we should close this or just leave it open. I think it was added to the agenda because of the discussion, which I have marked in the next one, which is we've got a discussion on the Node.js org in terms of recognizing sponsors, and Claudio added to the agenda as an FYI on those. So I guess I'm tempted to say let's leave that issue open, but take it off the agenda because I don't think, like, unless people think there's some more discussion, concrete discussion, we should try and push in the TSC meetings on that one. Does that make sense to people?
That makes sense to me, but I just have a question.
Yep.
Are we already getting money from sponsorship from those
There
two
is
sources
some.
that you mentioned?
There is some. It's not huge. We haven't really done any promotion of it. And what I've been pushing on is getting us so that we can come up with a like sponsors page, so that when we start to promote it, we can say like, we've opened the sponsorship, please sponsors us. Here's our asks, and here's what we do to promote larger sponsors as well. So that's a longer, more of an answer than you had. But yes, we've got some small amount. Hopefully we can get more when we start to promote. So I'm going to take off the TSC agenda label on that one. So, because unless we're actually going to discuss something, I think it makes sense to take it off. Similarly, the next one is the other issue, which is talk about how Node.js is funded, foundation and company support. Right. So this ticket would create a page somewhere that acknowledges the LF OpenJS companies donating times. So I think okay. So I think this suggestion is covered based on the ongoing suggestion in. Oops. Sorry, I got to get the right cut and paste there. Yeah. Yes.org discussions. So I think my suggestion on that one as well is like I'd encourage everybody to go take a look and engage in that discussion. I do have a session with Claudio to start to talk about like how would we actually implement this. I did send it before adding to that discussion, so all the TSC members should have a chance to take a look at it. But the concept is to make sure we recognize existing sponsors who've been sponsoring through people, as well as, and even like infrastructure, as well as any dollar type funding. And kind of like I said, my personal plan was to work on that page, and then once we get that, to bring up like how do we promote things. So I think my recommendations, we take that off the agenda until that progresses, and then we can bring it back if there's a specific question. Any concerns with that? Okay. If not, I'm just going to take that. Remove TSC agenda. The next one is test runner matching every TS and GS if glob is not provided. If anybody's got the context on that
Yeah,
one.
this is I added recently. So there was I wouldn't say breaking change, but there is a side effect that happened when we unflagged TypeScript, is that the test runner also started to match .ts files and .test.ts files, which is like it broke some users in 23. And now when we backport to 22, we have the same problem of like, if we unflag, the test runner will start matching all these .ts files. And if we don't do the same thing for 22, then 23 and 22 will be different. And there is already a big discrepancy in the test runner because there are no globs in v20. So, for example, if you cannot use the same command line to run the test for v20, v22, and v23 because they all behave differently. So there were some solutions proposed by mostly test runner team people. The first solution is YOLO and just backport it. Some people will, like, when they will upgrade, some people who have .ts files in test folder, they will be run and they will need to adjust. Second, most conservative is like not to disable this behavior of running .ts files in both 23 and 22. But again, people asked for running .ts files and something they asked for. There are like middle grounds, like disable some behaviors, but it's and there is also the proposal to backport globs to v20. So at least there is one command to disable this behavior in all of our release lines, but that was considered as a major change. So I don't know how feasible is that. So if we want to backport, which I don't know if we would do, but we have a small window of opportunity before we release the next 20, which will be very rushed. But there is no like straightforward solution. I would like the input and to know what to do about this.
Was one of the options suggested that you would opt in to TypeScript files on the older version?
The problem with this is that would change the behavior from 22 and 23. So I'm like, this happens a lot in package authors, that they run the same tests in all the matrix of our versions. That would make it hard for them to have like, okay, if it's 20, I don't have glob. So if it's 22, then I need to opt in. If it's 23, I need to do something else. And so that is the discrepancy problem. But yeah, this is the problem.
But it would kind of either be that it's trading that against breaking people, right? Like,
yeah,
either some people would have to opt in on 22 to get new behavior.
So if they use a glob, they can already run TS files. The problem is, by default, if you don't specify any glob, anything, you run just --test, then also TS files will be executed. And that would, like, we had cases where users have the dist folder, like front-end tools, and then it will run the .ts files in the source code and the JS file in the dist file, because of how the pattern matching of the test runner works. So it breaks some users.
Right. So it seems like our challenge is deciding, like, it doesn't sound like there's a solution that's going to be no work for everybody. So it's
exactly.
Which one do we think is the best solution? And like, it sounds like we've got the option of, like, we could make people have to opt in on 22, which would require some work, or we can have some people broken on 22. And it's like, I guess the question for the TSC is like, which way should we go, right?
Yeah, like match the behavior of node 23, or like limit the behavior in node 22 and keep this discrepancy probably like forever. I mean, this is mostly an FYI, and there is still time. I don't think backporting globs, like, would be nice to backport globs, but it's some major change. So that would require the like a complete discussion, but this is FYI, so please have a look at this because it's
Okay.
yeah.
My understanding is that the glob is more like a workaround than what people would naturally expect it to work, like picking up .js everywhere if you do
Yeah.
not specify glob. So given that that's not like the best, like the most natural user experience, it seems kind of weird to backport that. Like as far as I understand, that seems to be like something that should be fixed in the long term. So it seems not really worth it to backport that behavior to 22. Might as well just make it partial on 22 because that's like not the end, like not not something you want eventually anyway. So why break people on 22 for including something that people do not want eventually?
Yeah, and so this is the reason why I opened the issue, because I don't think that matching every .js and .ts file in whatever folder is unless you provide, like, unless there is a test folder. Like if you don't have a test folder, it will match .js and .ts whatever in your tree. I don't think that's a good default behavior. So we could probably change it at least for .ts in both 23 and 22. But some people commented that they use the .test.ts extensions in their source code because, like, for front-end people, it's okay to put the test inside the source folder, and when they transpile, then they will execute the same test twice, one in TS and one in JS, because of this default behavior.
So that still comes down to having to use glob to exclude them. Can we backport them so that they are not included on 22 so that it's not breaking?
Yeah, we could just like not. We could either choose a few of the globs that are in 23, or like disable this behavior at all. So we need, like, there is middle grounds that. So, but there is not just like one solution that makes everyone happy, basically.
What about the option of you have to opt in to the default, like where it searches everything, but if you use a glob, it will still work? Like, is that maybe that's already one of the options, right?
The like, if you don't put options, it search everything. If you don't, like, just dash dash dash, it search everything. But like, if you can specify the behavior with the glob, so I mean, you're already, like, it's the default behavior that, in my
Right, it's
opinion,
just
is
the
not
default. Yeah, okay.
yeah. But yeah,
Okay,
so
so
there is an issue open, and we can discuss in the issue. It's like there is no rush because it will be backported probably in April. But yeah, this is something really important.
But you say it searches everything, but I guess it still ignores node modules, or it also goes in the node underscore modules folder.
I think it ignores node modules. I hope. I'm not sure, because I, like, from the documentation, it does not specify that,
Yeah, I'm
actually.
looking at it, and it doesn't specify any ignores.
because even for non-TS files, you wouldn't want it doing that. It's your point, right?
Yeah, yeah, because there are modules that publish their tests, and you don't want to run them.
That's probably a good comment in there as well. Just round out the discussion. Any other things we should discuss on that one?
Not on my side, unless someone wants to like bring up the idea of backporting globs to 20.
I'm really hesitant to do that. I'm a little bit worried that getting require ESM into Node 20 is dragged in a lot more stuff than we thought it might. And I'm a little bit worried that it's almost 20's almost become like, because the next one's going to be a Semver minor, let's get even more stuff backported that we normally wouldn't. So I am a little bit hesitant to just throw things into Node 20 just because we have broken the usual guidelines to, yeah, I broadly agree with getting require ESM back into Node 20, but other things that are being proposed just because we're doing a Semver minor, I'm less enthusiastic about, because the default policy is no, Node 20 is now in maintenance and really it shouldn't be getting features. Some things maybe if they're tiny and small and not risky. And yeah, I in particular case of say glob or whatever, I my gut reaction is I'm not too sure about it. So I think we're always going to have. It's going to be very difficult to say like, if you're testing against all versions of Node that are in support are going to behave exactly the same at any point in time. There are in the release policy, there are things. So, one of the reasons we can do things like require ESM is there is a little get out clause that says, at the discretion of the release team, if we feel that things would make things better for the ecosystem. So, like, for example, we tend to backport the Node API changes to all releases to make developing add-ons easier. But it doesn't extend to, we should get every feature backported. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think we can solve that one here, but yeah, and just in terms of backporting stuff, I mean, 22 is one thing, but I think 20 is another. I really want to be very careful about what we take back to Node 20.
Any other discussion before we move on to the next issue? Okay, the next one is let's talk about the CI situation. I don't think there's really any other updates. We talked about the one earlier, which was the shutdown one. I think that's one of our biggest problems. We know that's our biggest problem, but I'm not sure if there's anything else specific to talk about in terms of the CI situation at this point. Okay, the next one then is Open Core Pack vote number 1527.
Yeah, so I also add this one. So like what happened with Core Pack, and I'm not like insane to reopen the Core Pack discussion, but what happened with Core Pack is basically there was something that broke and we had to release a patch in all our release lines, so users could not use Core Pack in their CIs. The work around was to install Core Pack from npm instead of having Core Pack using the Core Pack bundle. So this showed that like people can just use Core Pack without having it bundled to Node.js, and this is a maintenance burden because if it breaks, we have to release, and if there is like security, we would have to do a security release. So yeah, go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, we still haven't, if I remember correctly, we still haven't patched Node 20. So I think there was a Node 20 release with an updated core pack yet.
Yeah, it will be released next week with the Node 20 release. So I would like to reopen the vote, which was never done for some reason, and to like decide the final resolution if we want to keep this, like if we want of having core pack, because it's something, it's a long-term commitment. It's like NPM where we need to like match our release with really like some very major release of NPM security releases, and like this is a big commitment if we want to do it. So I want us to take a decision and say like, yes, let's keep NPM core pack bundle, or no, let's unbundle core pack. The reason why I decided to go now to vote is because it showed, like, if you go at the NPM download stats, they went like very high because people downloaded it, and now they are almost stable because now once you have changed your CI, you can keep it that way and it will work. So I think it's a good time to do it, and since we are doing some very major release, we can like this is the like there is enough time to unbundle core pack. So vote open, please take a look. We are in a tight schedule, so we have to decide, like we have 1 week for the vote. So we would like as soon as we can, we should do the vote, and so there is time to before the December major cut.
So in terms of the issue of a vote, I guess like let's try and make a dedicated like what I think what we want is like a date by which we've agreed that the vote's going forward. And so like, are there any objections to the vote going forward at this point? And I forget, you know, off the top of our head, have you looked at what our governance is around that? Like, is it just consensus with no objections, or is it more than that?
There are no objections to the vote, but it doesn't clearly state what consent, like to start a vote. I don't think, unless someone's blocking, I think it's like once you have reached like lazy consensus, it can happen. It would be weird if you need consensus to like full consensus to run a vote.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. So yeah, and then a vote. So I guess it's the you know, one question would be to document, like, is there anybody here at the meeting who would be like, nope, I don't think we should start the vote, because that would give us another 10 people who have like not like we know they're not objecting, right? Or who don't. Yeah, I guess it could be like who object or would like more time before we, you know, we move forward.
I think the PR has approvals. It has like quite a lot of approval. So I think by our laws it would be already good to land. But I wanted to like talk about it in the TSC meeting so that we are all aligned, and I would merge it like before the weekend or during the weekend. So or Monday, like start the vote Monday.
Is it fair to say that, like, if I put in the minutes, from the people here, nobody objected or needs more time to consider before agreeing it can move forward? I guess like and then I guess it's like Marco, then we could also put in the minutes like the proposal, nobody in the meeting. And then, Marco's plan is to land to now, does the PR include the questions, like in terms of what the vote will be, is my only other question now.
On the comment, I think the package maintenance like is in favor of like unbundling. I can ping the team under the vote if they want to block. But as far as I know, the outcome from the whole thing was unbundled. I think Claudio was one of the people who worked into that and is supportive in the vote.
Okay, so that's maybe Marco's plan is to, and I'm going to say maybe mention the package maintenance team, right? Team in the issue, land the PR if there are no objections on Monday. Is that?
Yep. Just so the cut for 24 is the 22. So by starting Monday, there is 1 week, which is the 17th. So we have 4 days to land the remove core pack if we want to do it in 24.
Okay. Okay, any other questions or things? Like I'll put that in the minutes. I'll also say, and I can copy that same thing into the PR itself just to reflect. Like I'll put it in the chat. Again, like if anybody's uncomfortable with me the formatting will be slightly better than that, but does that seem like a fair thing to put into the PR in the minutes based on the discussion? Yeah, I'll be assuming silence is a no objections, okay with it. Just putting that into the issue. Okay, we can move on then. So the next one is a Node.js security working group update CVEs for EOL release lines. MITRE removal and next steps. This is issue number 1443. I think Raphael might have been the one who added it to the agenda. I don't know if Marco, you are have been in some of those discussions. I know I missed the last security work group meeting, so.
I really don't have an update because I was also
Okay.
I need to catch up on this.
Okay, I think there is a PR to the nodejs.org which kind of explains things. So that's probably the main thing to call out for today is like if people can go read that. I mean, the top level summary is the CVE. I don't even know what you call it, but like the people who run the system basically said our CVEs to mark EOL versions as vulnerable because their EOL does not conform to the rules. Therefore, they've been rejected, or they were first disputed, now they're rejected. They did say, well, but we still understand your problem and we're working on that, but technically based on today's rules, they're invalid, so they have to be canceled. And so the security, who came up with that idea is looking at other options as to what we do instead. Maybe in the future we could go back to that, but for now we need to do something else. So you can go read that, and like Marco and I both said, we haven't read that blog post, but that's sort of probably the current state of what our alternative might be based on some background discussions. Let's flip over to strategic initiatives then, because we still have a few minutes.
On that,
Hey, so
please help me for the V8 update because there are many build issues and I have I am not able to fix them.
Okay.
I think I fixed the VHCI at least. So that's one down, I hope.
Yeah, thank you, Richard.
Well, I think
There are issues with Windows. I got no answer from Windows people. There are issues with SmartOS. I got no answer from SmartOS people. And there are issues with ARM v7. And I don't know who is knowledgeable about that. And there are other issues.
I have identified the stack issue related to workers. I think I'm going to submit a patch to V8 because I think it's a V8 issue.
Okay, nice.
Okay. Okay, I think I've captured that one. Okay, right. Sorry, just trying to get to that. Sometimes Google Docs just drive me nuts. Okay. Antoine, anything on core promises? Yeah, Antoine, you're on mute if you're talking. And maybe we'll come back. Joey, any updates on startup snapshot?
No, I don't think so.
Already updated on V8 currency. So I think then next 10, I think I'd mentioned the survey before. I think the current plan is to do the survey after the collaborator summit so that the proposed survey there'll be a session. I think Marco's going to lead that session to sort of go through the survey and get some feedback before we send it out soon after that. And I think that takes us to the end of the strategic initiatives that we have champions here for. That takes us to the end of the agenda. So are there any other topics or things that we should chat about? I think the one thing I might mention is Collaborator Summit. Definitely would be good for people to propose sessions. I was looking at it as when we were in the Next 10 meeting earlier today, and there aren't a huge number of sessions yet. So if you've got an idea of what to talk about, it would be great if people would submit ones. Otherwise, I'll say thanks for everybody's time who made it to the meeting, and everybody's watching on the live stream, and we'll see you next time in GitHub. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Folks.